Slowly getting there. Hangout is live. SpecFicMedia.com presents Beyond the Wall, a Game of Thrones podcast. With hosts Christiana Ellis, Jute Schubert, Vivid Muse, and Nookchus. All right, hello everybody. Welcome to episode 1 of season 8 of Beyond the Wall. No, we're not going to end yet. Tonight we're discussing episode 1 of Game of Thrones titled Winterfell. I'm Chooch, and as always, I'm joined by Christiana Ellis.
Hello. All the way from
Just,
South Korea. Sorry.
Yeah, all right.
Hello, everybody from up in Hardhome. I am in the near north of Canada right now.
And Viv.
So further north than usual.
Yes.
Right.
And I'm Viv, and it's a beautiful spring day in New Mexico, except that it's night now. So I guess Dorne. Dorne is lovely today.
Yes, we're in Dorne.
I forgot that.
Wait, does that mean that Christiana's in Essos?
Where was
Yeah. Well, let me think. My first thought was Bravos, but that's probably not right. I'd say more like Karth.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Did anybody? Well, so I was going to ask if anybody had any initial reactions, but we already got Nettie and Christiana's initial reactions. If people heard on the podcast feed, not on YouTube, Nettie had the great idea to get initial reactions of the show, and she and Christiana had recorded some stuff and posted that into the podcast feed. And after Sunday night, I'm hoping I will get mine in so it can actually be included. I totally flaked. But that was very cool.
It was hard. It was frustrating trying to talk about the episode and keep it to just like a minute or so.
Yeah.
That was really hard because I'm like, oh, and this, and this, and this. Oh, I can't talk anymore.
But then my overall opinion is probably the most common reaction I saw on Twitter and Facebook was just, wow. Like there were so many just wow tweets.
I feel like this first episode was fan service. It was, okay, we're going to take care of all the things that the fans want to see so that we can get to the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many different characters crossing over that it's kind of like, well, people have wondered for years, like, what would happen if this character met that character, or what would happen if these two characters finally see each other again? And there's so many of those crossovers happening in this location that they kind of have to devote some reasonable amount of screen time to some of those things. So they can't have the big action happen yet when they have to spend 40 minutes just on, hey, all of these characters are in the same place now. That's weird, right?
Yeah. And a little bit of catch up of, where were we at, where people's heads at kind of thing.
My initial reaction was a lot of crying, a lot of like pointing and screaming as I'm trying to also cover my eyes to not see certain scenes that were terrible, and you covered your eyes for that scene at the last hearth, and you could still hear the screaming. So it was a multi-dimensional experience. It was super powerful and amazing, and I promise to get my reactions up this week.
But, yeah. So I have a question. Was the kid in the center of the spiral, was that supposed to be Lord Umber?
Yes.
Yeah. The kid we saw at the beginning. I never caught on that was the same kid.
Okay, well,
let's go in order. Let's go in order.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll get ourselves wrapped around. Yeah. But yes, it was.
I was thinking we would go mostly in order, though everything pretty much happens just in Winterfell and King's Landing with a couple tiny little tidbits here and there. So I think we will. No, actually, yeah. Not mostly in order, but I think we'll hit Winterfell and pretty much stay there for a long time until we go to King's Landing.
Very quickly before you go in,
yeah.
Mike McCauley's in the chat and he says, things I learned this week. 1, dwarf jokes bad. Eunuch jokes, okay. 2, Cersei's raven runs at Mach 3 with news from the wall. 3, I think Jamie shit himself when he saw Bran. And we will get to all of that, Mike.
Yeah.
Yes, he
I
soiled
agree.
his pantaloons.
So where do we start, Chooch?
Well, the title sequence, new stuff.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
astrolabe had new engravings with the dragon taking down the wall, and then we go the March of the Dead. So you saw those little tiles flip over, and I'm guessing that's going to stay up to date because there were lots of tiles all over the world. And then Last Hearth was a brand new thing, and then when it dives into Winterfell, I was just like, whoa, what the fuck?
I think that's
The grips, so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we were in King's Landing, we got to see we got to dive down as well and see the dragon heads.
Yeah.
The skulls of the dragon.
Yes.
yeah.
I loved that. That them doing that change to the intro, I think was just really amazing, and I'm so glad that they did that. It was ominous seeing all the path of the others, but it was amazing to see, like, to delve into those, and I'm really glad that they did that. Like you said, Nettie, there was so much fan service, and it started from the first note of the opening.
Well, I think in addition to it just being cool visually, and obviously getting to see that stylized representation of some of the settings in King's Landing and in Winterfell, but I think it also sort of thematically primes us with the expectation that we probably mostly had already, but that's like, okay, Winterfell, King's Landing, those are our primary locations. We don't really have anything in other places really that we're worried about right at the moment. It's mostly these places, and so this is where we're focusing.
Yeah. Yep. I think it only went to the Last Hearth and Winterfell and King's Landing, right?
Dragonstone.
On the map. Oh, did it go to
Dragonstone? Yeah.
Did it?
Okay.
Was it? Or was that the skull under King's Landing?
Yeah, the skulls were under King's Landing.
Yeah, the skulls were under. Yeah.
That's the secret room where in season 1, like Peter Baelish and Varys were not Peter Baelish.
Right. Okay.
Whatever his name for Bravos and Varys were meeting, and then everybody had their secret meeting.
Yeah, I thought it was weird that it did teleport pretty fast.
It also though did that room, I think the scene that the credits is evoking is the scene where Qyburn is demonstrating the scorpion to Cersei.
Yeah,
and they do actually shoot the big dragon skull with it.
It shows that in the little engraving right afterwards. Yeah, in the astrolabe.
Yes.
How fun was it to see that updated too? I have seen so many posts on people zoomed in and looking at each little pixel, trying to determine what the things are, and it's just like, I just love that this is where we're at now, technology wise and media wise. That like this kind of immersion into the story that I've always wanted so desperately. Like it's also like taking us into the map the way that it does. It's almost like, okay, y'all, you asked for it. We're going to give it all to you behind the scenes, under the castle, everything. Are you ready?
Home stretch, motherfuckers.
Yeah. You're here. Let's do this. It was great.
So on the astrolabe, we had, and correct me if I get them out of order because I left my notes at home. We have the Red Wedding, we have the Dragon Birth, and then there's one other, and I can't remember which one it was.
I didn't even take notes on that because it was fresh eye candy, and I would have spent hours just.
I only really noticed the wall and the scorpion thing, and that's about it.
Okay.
Well, we'll pay attention.
Somebody will write in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's billions of words.
I'm sure there's lots of places online. I'm sure people have exhaustively gone through that.
Yeah.
Speaking of writing in, I collected all of our predictions in a spreadsheet and I shared it with the other hosts. But if any of our listeners want to give us a prediction of who's going to die this season, who's going to end up on the Iron Throne, and your prediction for the last scene, I'll put it in that spreadsheet, and we're going to read that out during our finale. So if you have a prediction, send it on in.
I think it was, and it wasn't just like who's going to die, like
Yeah.
a whole list, but like one person.
Yeah, one
One
person. You just
significant
give
That's
them one guess.
significant. Yeah.
You get brownie points if you're right, you know?
Mm-hmm. Gotta get those brownie points.
Yeah.
Got to win the no prize. So we start the thing we start off in Winterfell. John and Danny are coming to town, and they've got this great callback of the kids scrambling to try to get a look at the queen coming, and passes by Arya. And
I did want to
such
ask
a
about that
great
kid,
intro.
though.
Mhm.
Sorry, just because it briefly came up earlier. I think the kid up at Last Hearth that, in that, that was supposed to be, the kid, Lord Umber.
Yeah.
But without rewatching, I wasn't 100% sure if that was also the kid from the beginning or if those were two different kids.
I'm not clear. I'm
Different.
about to look it up because
I don't
I
believe
thought
so.
they looked remarkably similar, and I don't
Yeah,
know.
they're
that they
boys
would
at
have
about
made
the
them.
same age, similar.
But I mean,
Yeah.
they looked so similar, and if they didn't want us to think that it was him, then they would have gotten someone different. It was like the
Well-
only child.
Well, but if they wanted it to be him, they would have it just
Yeah.
be him, right?
Yeah.
I don't
The
know.
other
It
thing
is two
is
different boys.
yeah, the other thing is I think they're trying to evoke the imagery of Bran
Yeah.
from the first episode with
Yeah.
this kid climbing around. So I think it's just all boys that age kind of look the same.
Yeah. Well,
I feel
certainly
like-
all white boys with short
Yeah.
brown hair like that.
Yeah.
But so that's what I wasn't sure about, because I thought it was really effective having the kids evoke Bran climbing all around.
Yeah.
From episode 1.
Go ahead, Chooch.
Oh, you're muted.
Graphics.
Lost
I
you
was
there.
playing with the graphics. Yeah, I like that. I think that makes sense. I wasn't thinking of Bran, but it represents lots of different things.
Well,
So we
because
see the true.
sorry, just in the first episode of the first season, we see Bran climbing around to see the people coming. We see
Yeah.
that Arya is not
Yeah.
at Winterfell. She's in the town. There's so many callbacks. It was so Force Awakens.
Yeah. I thought it was such an interesting choice to have Arya place herself like out of context, right? In the town rather than in Winterfell. And it seemed like I thought it was nicely complex that it seemed like she had an expectation that various people would recognize her enough to like notice her in a crowd in an unexpected place, and yet nobody did. So to have it simultaneously for us to understand that it's probably an unreasonable expectation,
Yeah.
and yet to also still understand why she might still feel a little bit disappointed. But also, so we get to see her sort of react to all these different people coming through.
I love
The Hound, who she thought was dead. Gendry, who she last saw getting spirited away by Melisandre. Is like, John, and then Daenerys, who she has never seen before, but certainly heard about, is like, I thought that was great, just watching her experience that perception and seeing her each time half hoping for them to see her and recognize her, but then they don't.
Yeah.
And then dragons.
Yes.
And
They
everybody's
establish-
just, whoa.
Yeah. They establish explicitly that they are full-grown dragons now.
Yes.
Well, and I think it was a really powerful moment for Dany, because I felt like when they came up on the horses, Dany was looking really confident, like she would, because that's what she's had to do all along. And I felt like John was just kind of like looking his usual unknowing self. But like when Dany wasn't happy. She seemed like, she was getting the energy from everybody that they weren't really accepting all of this and weren't impressed. And then the only time she smiles is when her dragons scare the piss out of everybody. And that is like literally the worst kind of energy to walk into this. I think it really set the tone really well, because everybody was frightened. She did nothing to reassure them. She laughed. That will have been noticed. and it just does not serve her. You know what I mean? She's not used to having to worry about, well, what do the subjects think about all of this? She's used to commanding things.
Yeah, and
How to
she's
set
not
the
even
tone really well.
and she's not even like, Miss Sunday or the Unsullied, because they had an even less
Oh my
pleasant
God.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I give them credit for putting that
Yeah.
in there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think-
they had to give a nod to the fact that there are very few characters, people of color on the show,
Yeah.
and that's
A lot
kind
less
of
than are in the books.
absolutely. And
Well-
it is good that they kind of pointed that out. This is a rarity, and yeah, maybe that's our bad, but we're trying to point that out here.
Well, part of what's frustrating about that too is that the show actually was better about that in earlier seasons and then kind of stopped.
Yep.
Yeah.
So why did that happen? But I wonder, there's a couple of things in this episode that make me wonder if the show is subtly pivoting on Danny. Because in terms of like portraying, like there's certainly been ambiguities in her portrayal before now.
Right.
But I feel like the line, this is jumping way ahead, but the line from Sam to John about saying you were willing to give up your crown to save your people, would she do the same?
Yep.
Right.
And I evoke that when talking about what Viv was just saying, because I agree with you that this idea of these people aren't respecting me enough, so I'm going to be happy when my dragons scare them.
Yeah.
Is not a great attitude for
Right.
this circumstance. Now, it's one thing for her to say, I'm the rightful rulers of these people and they're unappreciative even when I'm coming here to help them. It's one thing to have some of that attitude, but she has never been interested really in having people love her. That's always like,
Right.
she's always just seen that as like, oh, well, I do what I want and that happens.
Right. And this actually came up before, didn't it? Where was it her directly, or was it Tyrion or Varys that said she can conquer, but can she rule? And this is the part of ruling that she's never had to do before. She's never had to sway people like this. She used her dragons to fear people into following her. And like, it's all spelled out throughout the episode that it's just going to lead to loads of I can't wait to see the conflict, but it's going to be rough for her for a minute for sure.
Yeah.
But and I think they're definitely setting up with the revelation of John, and so what you just mentioned, her how she's acting there, and then when she's with Sansa, when they're talking and they're kind of, butting it out a little bit, and then when she talks to John later, and basically, you need to check your sister, I'm the queen.
Right.
When they get interrupted,
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they're definitely setting her up to really have a bad reaction to this news.
Yeah.
It is complicated too, though, because on the one hand, we could also put ourselves in her shoes a little bit and say, John is supposed to be the one they chose to be the king, and he saw the wisdom in bending the knee to me.
Yeah.
And he's on board. And so for her to be a little frustrated that the people who chose him as their king won't listen to what he's saying, they just want to do their own thing. Like, so I could understand her frustration with that.
What kind of a king doesn't, if a king decides something and the people fight him at every turn, that's exactly what she's dealt with and she's overcome in her reign. In her reign, anytime somebody tried to tell her what to do, it's like, no, I am the queen. I have made this decision. You will follow it. And so when she met someone who was supposed to be a king, she kind of expected the same thing, that if I can convince him, I have his people.
Yeah. And, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, too, I was a little bit surprised that John didn't play that card a little bit harder when people were giving him a hard time about bending the knee, of just saying, you chose me because you thought I would be a good leader, and yet now you don't want to listen to my opinion about why this was the right thing to do.
My only argument as to why he didn't do that is because otherwise we would never get that awesome Lyanna Mormont speech.
Yeah.
And the fans demand another Lyanna Mormont speech.
At least one more
Oh, yeah.
this season. Come on, maybe
I
one an
like
episode.
but I felt like she was off base on that particular speech. I like her as a character,
Yeah,
but I felt
no,
like she was on the
I
wrong side
don't.
of that argument.
I
I
thought
think
that was the epitome of the North. Yeah.
exactly. That's exactly it, Chooch. I felt like she spoke for everybody there, including the dude Vulcan from the Vale. I felt like she hasn't been anywhere else but Winterfell dealing with this, or her, she's only been there. She hasn't seen the things the other people have seen. All she's had in her ear day and night is the other people at Winterfell trying to pull this shit together and waiting for Jon to come back. So I think she was the one. They allowed one person to speak for time constraints, and she was the best one to do it.
So, if I may, I assume this means that we're in that scene here.
Yeah.
One thing that is painfully obvious is that the North, the heads and the houses of the North, are all led by children and old men.
I died when I saw all those babies, and especially before we even knew it was going to happen, I was like, Chooch, he's so little. It's just not right. It's just messed up. But that's what war is, right?
Yeah. And I think this is something that we will likely see in the books because it kind of was leading that way, that when you go off to war, all your good people die.
Yeah.
And so that's I don't know, it just seemed, I think they did it really well, but I was so painfully aware. I was like, there is nothing but children and old men.
Yeah.
And this is the North, this is the Vale, this is all of their allies.
We had a similar scene, I think it was last season, actually, with who was it? It was, I can't remember. It was the young woman, the girl that's the lady of her house, and then not Lady Mormont, but another young lady. And then it was young Lord Umber, and I can't remember. I feel like there was another male. This time they definitely, I feel like, had more kids, and it was far more dramatic. It was like shocking then to have two houses run by children effectively. But now it was just like, oh God, it's just getting worse, y'all.
Yeah.
One thing I was happy about, we talked about this in our, like our preview show, but also at the end of last season of, my hope was that they would not be hitting too hard on tension between Jon and Sansa, because I felt like they had kind of played that card with the Arya and Sansa thing. And I feel like, although certainly they're still stirring up drama, I feel like the show was wise to put that tension more between Sansa and Dany than with Sansa and Jon.
Agreed. Yes.
Yeah, they kind of, they get right to it and squash it, Yeah. Hey, what's up? This is bullshit. And then he's like, hey, what do you want me to do? Do you still trust me? And, of course I do.
Because it's hard to argue with his position of saying, listen, we can be right and then all die, or we can try to not die and then figure out the rest afterwards. How about that?
Yeah. I also want to, going back a little, I do want to say, so Creepy Ben is creepy throughout the entire
Some really great memes.
I did
so
see
many.
That the actor, the way that he did it is he wears glasses or contacts. And so when he films, he doesn't wear his contacts.
Yeah.
And that's how he gets that creepy stare.
He can't see.
Kind of slightly out of focus.
Yeah,
He
so
does
at you. Yeah.
As a very blind person, I can appreciate that. But I do love there's like petty bickering, and it's like, okay, we don't have time for this. By the way, Ice King's got your dragon. And then like Dany's face was just
Yeah. Truth
crap.
bombs, just boom, boom, boom. Truth cluster bombs. I saw the clip. There's an interview on Kimmel where he said that Maisie, we did a scene, and Maisie's like, God, it's like you were staring into my soul. That was just incredible. And he's like, I can't see a damn thing.
I love it so much. Those kids are great.
Yeah, they really are.
And getting back to the scene that we were talking about, again, I
Mhm.
think a lot of what I like about this episode is that they end the scenes really well. Every scene had a good punctuation at the end of the scene. And
Mhm.
this one was the whole, I mean, what do dragons even eat? Whatever they want.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I thought it was really fascinating. It had to be absolutely fascinating for Danny to see these women kind of nipping at John after, well, primarily Sansa and Lady
Mhm.
Mormont, nipping at John after like having come up, so to speak, in the Dothraki world.
Yeah.
Like it's a total flip flop. And now she's seeing John being challenged not only by all of his subjects, his siblings, in front of other subjects, when she's already threatened the lives. She's basically banished to threaten her advisors if they question her in front of anybody else.
Yeah.
And so for her to see him taking it and taking it and explaining it and explaining it and explaining it, and then, you know, like young Lyanna. And so she sits there and it's like, I think that that's the very first thing that she says
Yep.
is trying to shut Sansa down over the dragons. And it's just, I mean, again, I just want to say to her, honey, you need to put away your Essos book and pick up your Westeros book because it's a different one altogether. And I think that they're doing a really good job in setting up the conflict that I kind of asked for in our earlier episode about the North versus, you know,
Mhm.
all of that. And it looks like that might actually happen, but just
I-
seeing how she's able to control her anger is actually kind of admirable, but you can't really see what's going on, like what
Yeah.
she's really thinking about it. She's very quiet and she only makes that one mildly threatening thing to Sansa, and like that's it. And I feel like she's got to be frustrated because she must be thinking, but I'm using my good girl manners. I haven't burned anybody. I haven't
Well-
had anybody cut in half. And you guys are
Right.
not even responding. You're supposed to be charmed by this. But she has not been refined politically for this
Yeah.
particular
It's not,
challenge.
yeah. Well, and the other thing too is like, even though I feel like I said that the show is like pivoting towards being a little bit more negative on Danny, I think.
Mhm.
I think it's also very true that, like, from her perspective, like, when Sansa is like complaining, like, how are we going to feed your dragons? Daenerys is like, I am bringing in the big guns to save you.
Yeah. Yeah.
How to feed them is your freaking problem. I'm the one that bringing the dragons here is my part. Your part is figuring out that stuff.
So
do
Mike
your part,
Macaulay.
and so I can do my part.
So Mike Macaulay says in the chat, you would think that Bran's words would have had more weight regarding wasting time, because it's like, I agree with you, Mike, because he's like, yeah, we can't waste
Mhm.
time. We've got to get action. And then what do? They just start bickering.
They bicker.
Council
Absolutely.
chambers.
Yep.
It
Gloriously.
was just showed how great Sansa has grown into that role of, you know,
Yeah.
of the bitchy, you know, queen. Well,
Who
not queen,
would
Part
have
lady of
thought?
Winterfell. You know,
What is she? Part
It's- what
Cersei,
did they
part
even
Ned.
eat? Anyways, she was
Yeah.
just perfect.
Yeah, she did have it
Who
down.
would have thought in season 1 that by season 8, almost every watcher became a Sansa fan?
Oh, I feel like I've
You
seen
know?
a lot of Sansa hate out there, actually, a shocking amount.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of Sansa love. Okay, so maybe it's
Well,
just me.
I think it's true that a lot more people are Sansa fans than there used to be, but
Yeah.
there's always a contingent in this kind of show that when, like, you know, whether it's because they're fans of John in particular or whatever, but
Mhm.
it's like in Breaking Bad, there were a whole lot of people who watched that show who just hated Skylar, even though
Yeah.
from any objective position, she's the only good person in the show practically.
That's true.
Like, she's just doing the best she can, dealing with a completely unreasonable circumstance, and everyone acts like she's the buzzkill.
yeah.
Yeah, and the
So-
article the actress wrote about the death threats and
Oh
people
my
equating
God.
her with the character, she
my
had a
God.
horrible time. People
Well-
doxing her, and yeah.
Yeah, and
Ooh,
so I
gross.
think it's that same thing, even though John is not Walter White, that idea of there's the hero character that I care about, and that woman thinks she can just tell him
Right.
whatever and throw rain on his parade. What a bitch. There's
Mhm.
people like that,
Yep.
and it sucks, but
They're
there's
working out
they're out there.
I always feel like they're working out their own shit, though. Like, is that how
totally.
your significant other is with you? Is that your thought? What's going on here? This is not really about this show.
Yeah.
No, that's patriarchy.
Smush the patriarchy. So where are we now, Gooch?
So I think one of the important bits is Little Umber is sent to Last Hearth.
Yes.
And then I think this, totally needs one of those moments. Go to Last Hearth and bring your men back to Winterfell. And the narrator, he did not bring his men back to Winterfell.
Right.
Well, things that I thought about a little bit was
it needs to come back.
What, Nettie?
There used to be a Tumblr. It was like they would go through all the scenes.
Arrested
and then
Westeros.
Arrested Westeros, and then they put the Arrested Development captions on it. And it needs to come back.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's gone. Tumblr's dead.
Yeah. But one of the things I thought about in that whole little sequence, and especially in hindsight with what happens later, of the idea of like, does it really make sense to send this kid?
Yeah.
But I guess the reason that I ultimately decided that it did make sense is twofold. One, at that point, nobody has any idea that we're actually dealing with the wall has come down, because this happened before that news, didn't it?
No, after.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, whatever.
Down.
So the point is
that
they have no reason to believe that the Army of the Dead is literally already in between.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But the other is the fact of, if the kid is the Lord now, and the Northerners have already been established as being super stubborn, then the idea of, hey, everyone, we have to do something really hard now, but your Lord is a wimpy little kid, and so he couldn't even be bothered to come up here to let you guys know. And so, like, that idea is like, it makes sense that it's like, well, no, I mean, the Lord has to come, or else it's like, who's got the authority? And
Exactly.
Yeah.
I did see one meme. Somebody, well, I don't know. Can't remember if it was a graphic or just the text, but somebody saying, Arya says Sansa's the smartest person she's ever met. Cut to her sending little Ned back to Last Hearth, and maybe that wasn't the wisest thing, but I mean, it wasn't anything predictable, like Christiana said. They thought they were ahead of it.
Well, and also it was kind of, I mean, it's like theoretically that would have happened to anyone who went there. And, like what would have, like, the kid would be alive if he didn't go, but all his men would still be dead. So, I mean, the kid's not necessarily helpful to the larger effort except for his men. Yeah. So as far as a chess move from the high position, it's not really any difference.
No.
Makes a difference to the kid, obviously. Yeah, I mean, well,
I cried harder than if it had been an old
so we can jump over to Last Hearth, where we immediately find out that Team Tormund did live when the wall came down.
Oh my God!
So Ed and Tormund and Barrett all lived with no explanation whatsoever given to how they survived being on the top of the wall when it crumbled. But okay, that's fine. I'm not that worried about it. But it was just a little bit weird to not have the show even bother to try to explain any of it. Yeah. It's like, nope, they're alive. It's fine.
They know we're all just so grateful that we're not going to pick it apart.
I was having the same feels until we got that one line. And then I was like, all right, it's good. It's like, he's got blue eyes.
I've always had blue eyes.
I just love it.
Sorry, Chooch. Everybody's going to have to stay away from you. You've got blue eyes.
Yeah.
I've always had blue eyes.
It just reminded me, though, that I think I misspoke in the episode 0 show, because I was thinking that it was Tormund and Ed at Eastwatch.
Right.
It was actually Beric and Tormund, because Ed was still at Castle Black, but now they're all together, so it's moot anyway.
Yeah.
Even though it's not at all clear why would folks from Castle Black have gone to Last, but you know what, math and geography, who cares?
And a lot of timings are like way off in this episode, but we know that this has always been an issue in the show.
Well,
Yeah.
and especially in the last season, heading into this season, it's very obvious things happen at the speed of plot. They don't happen until all the pieces are in place, and then they happen exactly when everybody wants them to, as opposed to any effort spent on, well, it's going to take so-and-so this many days to travel that far, so we have to figure out what can happen in the meantime. It's just like, nope, things happen when we want them to happen. That's it. Period.
Would you agree that that's how George did the books?
No.
No, I think in the books there's some significant effort towards verisimilitude of how long it takes to get various places.
I don't mean travel. I mean having events unfold.
Oh, well, but I mean, I think it's a difference between saying if this character is going to take 3 weeks to get to this location, we're going to have stuff happen to them in the meantime.
Yeah.
As opposed to just saying, well, we want them to be at this location, so we're just going to say they take 1 day to get there instead of 3 weeks.
I think I kind of might actually then chalk this up to like the first seasons we had more time and it was more.
Well, I'm sure that's why.
Stuff, and now they're at movie pace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% sure that's why. I'm just saying that if anyone gets really upset about abandoning like realistic geography, it's like, well, you know what? You might as well just get over it because the show is not interested in that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not really complaining, just observing.
It's a thing. It's going to happen.
Natty, can't really understand you.
Yeah.
Your mic sounds
Something
Oh,
changed
sorry.
with your
I
mic.
think I was leaning on the microphone. I said, it's a thing. It's going to happen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You know, just hand wave.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So they meet up. They're all alive, and then we see that the Night King left a message.
Yes,
and
he did.
it's like, clearly, Lord Umber. And it was kind of extra meta fun for me watching it because I could see that Viv wasn't seeing the eyes when he was talking, and then all
Oh
of a
my
sudden
God, that was
the kid
great.
pulls out the dagger and Viv
I did not.
loses it.
Totally lost it. Did.
It was very, very effective scene.
Yeah.
I have to say it was not clearly Lord Umber because it wasn't until I read somebody else calling it Lord Umber. I was like, oh, I thought it was just a kid. I didn't even realize where. I thought we were at like one of the. I thought we were at like Eastwatch or something. I thought we were at the Wall. I didn't realize how far down in the south. You know how far south they had gone. So I didn't realize that was Lord Umber because I was like, I just saw Lord Umber.
Yeah.
But now that I realize it's Lord Umber, it kind of sinks in a little more. What I noticed was when they set him on flame, every time a new limb went on fire, there was a new scream.
Jesus.
Well, and like everybody has commented on all over the interwebs, you know, the spiral shape that the body parts were put into were a very clear callback to ones that we've seen since the very first episode. And it's been speculated to be significant because it's kind of the image that we saw when they did the aerial shot above the Night King being made by the Children of the Forest. They were arranged in that same kind of a spiral. And so all of that was fascinating, but still the baby just kept screaming on. So that's really like my biggest takeaway. I agree with everything that I've read, but at the time it was just so horrifying. It was like baby screaming on fire. Oh yeah, that symbol, more screaming.
Yeah.
That was rough.
Deep magics.
Yeah.
Now my question is, does that mean like if all the limbs start screaming, does that mean that there's like undead with the White Walkers that are now burning up and now the Night King knows that they were there? Or
probably that makes sense, doesn't
or
it?
am I overthinking it?
Yeah.
I don't know that we have any way to know, but it's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
But for sure, all of Umber's men are now the Night King, part of the Night King's army.
Yeah.
So, you know, they just get bigger and bigger as they go.
Yeah, because we see a lot of blood, but we don't see bodies.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that's actually one cool thing that's not necessarily intuitive when you're dealing with a threat like this, but it makes sense once you think about it, which is to say, of course there wouldn't be bodies because all of them are zombies now, or whites rather. But you know,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Bad business.
that was rough.
Yeah. It's back
it
to
is.
winter.
Sorry, I just the one last little niggle though to quibble, I suppose, to is the idea of clearly, like we could say the Night King is trying to send a message, and yet, like, why would the Night King assume that anyone would then be like, given his whole march is to just he's headed straight south, he's going to kill everybody he sees. So who is he expecting to go backwards behind where he's come already to go and see this? But then again, it's perhaps just jumping to conclusions for us to assume that something like that is meant for living people to see. It could be an entirely
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't know him.
Yeah. There's been speculation that he specifically used. I mean, I don't know how much speculation we want to get into, but one of the articles I read was speculating that he knew that it was the head of the Lord of the house. And so he specifically did him to send a message that it doesn't matter how high your station, I'm coming for you.
Well,
and doesn't matter if you're a child, I will nail you to the wall and make you one of my army. And so it was meant to be a message of terror that, you know, using the same symbolism that he's always used. And I can see that being possible, but I also like the idea that it's just, you know, others magic, you know, White Walker magic.
I also, one of the things that it reminds us is that he is not mindless. He is cunning.
Yeah.
And he has plans.
Yeah.
So, for instance, he wanted the dragons to come so he could kill a dragon.
I wonder about that. Like, I think that I always read that as opportunistic. Like, he didn't have some sort of plan to lure the dragons north, but once he saw them, he watched them flying overhead and was like, "Oh, I absolutely want one of those."
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I like, not that it wasn't a plan to lure them as much as like he's absolutely seizing the opportunity.
Well, why do you think that did he not command the walkers then to, because our little troop of heroes were surrounded for a really long time, long enough for that water to refreeze. So why do you think that he was watching and didn't command them to go further? I assume he was waiting for the dragon.
No,
Why
because
swarm?
Well, no, because we saw in that scene the water was breaking, and the zombies, every time they tried to come closer, they were just falling in the water.
No, I know, but I mean, it was a long enough span of time. I mean, they have all of these whites. He could have easily commanded some of them to lie down and be walked over to cross or what. I can't believe that he could not come up with a solution other than waiting for the water to refreeze.
Well, except why does he care? He doesn't mind waiting.
Because he's waiting for a dragon. That's my guess. That's my speculation. I think he knew it was coming.
So Mike McCauley in the chat says,
use them as
that
bait.
Symbol the same from season 1, episode 1? Is that the same exact message or sound like the same message? I think that is. Yeah. And again, it could also just be other magic. It could be, you know, maybe making those symbols has something to do with him making whites. Maybe, who knows?
Well, isn't it Lord Commander Mormont at the Fist of the First Men who sees the frozen bodies in that shape and says, "Always the artists"? Or is that Corin Halfhand? So it's one of those two.
Yeah.
I can't remember which one, but it's one of those two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we see always, you know.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Always the artist suggests that this is not even new behavior. Like they've always done this.
Agreed. Yeah.
And I think we saw some of those symbols in the Dragon Glass Cave, right?
It's people are saying that they saw them there. I didn't look it up, but that's what people are reporting, that they've seen them. But I mean, the spiral's been replicated, like in like, what was it? Somebody was that the symbol that they were likening to the Targaryen sigil?
I don't.
spirals. I've heard. I mean, people every time there's a spiral now, they're attributing it to being
Right.
tied. So it's kind of like, I only waded in so deep.
Yeah.
I could say, yeah. There's only so far you want to go.
Because I mean, honestly, it's a symbol that's common in a lot of Earth cultures and stuff like that. It's just one of those things.
But so I think, the Ice King, Night King, Night King has he has wargs, I think, right? Yeah, we saw.
Mhm.
No, I was thinking of the Thens.
Not
Anyways,
wargs. Wargs are when the Starks go in, but he's
Right.
got whites and
something
they're
like
not
that.
just
I have to imagine that he has visions and foresight. He has
Yeah.
other stuff going on that we don't know about.
right because he
So
can see
I
Bran.
totally take it as
Yeah.
him using them as bait
Yeah.
to get the dragons to come down.
I could see that, but I don't feel like he had any way of knowing that that was going to happen. They didn't even know. It was never part of the plan that the dragons were going to
True.
come rescue them.
I don't predict
Yeah.
we'll ever get an answer to this.
Well, I
No,
don't think
totally
it's really
not.
important
Yeah.
what the answer is. I'm just saying that that I don't think the fact that they waited means anything other than he doesn't need to wait until he has time. He could literally just let them freeze to death and not lose any more of his whites.
Totally.
Yeah.
But
I feel like it could be either
until
one. I feel
somebody
like
throws a stone.
yeah.
So now
Yeah,
that's
until
the
the
big
hound
insult.
gets
Somebody threw a stone. So
a hound.
okay, now's the time. Why would he wait? Why doesn't just wait for it to freeze? Who cares if he throws a stone?
Well, the stone proved that the ice was solid enough.
Frozen.
to walk
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hound threw the ice and it skidded where there
Right.
hadn't been ice. It had refrozen
Gotcha.
and they were like, "Oh snap, let's go get him now."
Mhm.
I think
Yeah,
it's
but
possible.
I think we're also attributing too much story logic to something that was obviously meant for mood.
Yeah.
Yeah, giving them too much credit.
I don't know.
Well,
I
no,
I like my conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I like it.
You might be right. I'm just saying I
I'm
don't
behind
think there's evidence other than just that one possible explanation. That's fine. We don't
Back
have to
to
keep spending
Winterfell.
time on this. We're totally wasting time on something.
Yes,
that
thank
happens.
you. Because the dragon has
Alright.
been turned.
I was enjoying the conversation,
Okay,
but if
I'm
you want
sorry,
to call
I'm
it a time waste, we can.
Okay.
Moving on.
To Winterfell, we've got wagons and wagons of dragon glass coming in, and
I'm not gonna lie. When my first viewing, I thought it was coal. I didn't realize it was dragon.
well, it's going to be a cold winter,
Yeah, well, and then once I watched it the second time, I'm like, no, Gendry's the one that has it, though. It's the dragon glass. Okay.
And
Sometimes
we
I
get
dumb.
another immediate big reunion of Tyrion and Sansa.
Mhm.
So good. So let's
Yeah.
not forget, by the way, they still married.
Well, yeah, still technically.
Right, technically, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I think they're going to let it go.
Yeah.
I
I'm worried about that.
I loved their meeting. And again, as I said, they keep punctuating these scenes with a nice end note. And that one ended with, I used to think you were the most clever man in the world.
Yep.
And it was
Yeah.
just like, oh, snap. And then he had
Yeah.
to sit there and go, oh, shoot, I think she's right.
Yeah. You believed Cersei was bringing her army?
Yeah.
Really?
Really? Really?
Yeah.
It's clear
Honestly-
that Sansa learned a ton from Cersei, and she paid way more attention than even Tyrion did to what was going on and why.
I
Mhm.
think that Tyrion and Sansa could be like an amazing power couple. I'm not shipping them,
Right.
but like I want them to work together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love where they're coming back. They're now equals. When
Mhm.
she left him, she was not equal to him. She
Mhm.
was scared, she was captive, she was just surviving, and now she's in control. And she has full autonomy of herself, and she has fought to where she is. And I think that now they can actually communicate on the same level, whereas before it wasn't. There was a power imbalance. It was never
Yeah.
a good relationship.
But in good faith, he tried to make it as comfortable for her as possible.
Yeah, he wasn't going to take advantage of her.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
And so
there's
she had a level of trust with that.
Yeah.
there's that heartbreaking moment, especially in the rewatch, when he has not forced the issue and she's starting to realize that he's actually sincere in he absolutely had every right, and not only that, but the every
Yeah.
right by law,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, and not only that, but was under intense pressure from his own family to seal the deal, so to speak, and yet he defiantly didn't, out
Yeah.
of consideration for her. And so there's a sequence where you can see them actually starting to warm to each other a little bit,
Mhm.
and thinking, wouldn't it be great if these two could actually be allies?
Yeah.
And then the red wedding happens, and how could
Yeah.
she ever, right? So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did a really beautiful job with that whole bit. And I think leading up to here, it's all been messy.
Yeah.
It's going to be real interesting to see, exactly how they recover.
yeah,
I also love that he does not blame her for leaving. Like, he makes a comment. He's like,
Mhm.
yeah, that was kind of awkward. But
it didn't
he
help me
doesn't-
out, but I get it.
He doesn't blame her, and he doesn't have any animosity, and he still doesn't go, so did you have any hand in that? Because he doesn't know the truth yet.
Yeah,
Yeah, presumably only Jamie and Cersei know. Who
I
knows?
think though that he
Sansa knows from Peter, and Arya and
Right.
and
Right.
Bran know, because that's what they used to
Duh. Yeah,
execute
Bran's
Peter.
there. Shit,
Mhm.
never mind.
So yeah.
Yeah. So I agree that he wouldn't know, but I suspect that Tyrion feels like, knowing who Sansa was and where she was at that point, I don't think I think
Yeah.
that she would not have been capable of it at that time.
Agreed.
Mhm.
And so I think he knows that. And
Yeah.
so that's why he could wonder if she was involved somehow. Like, she could have
Yeah.
been a pawn in a plot. Which technically she actually was, because it
Yeah.
was her necklace anyway.
Yeah.
So
Unfitting.
Sure.
she absolutely was part of the plot, just an unknowing part.
Yeah.
Deep. That's one of the reasons it's such a great show.
I did, just as a silly aside, I did read a funny little comment, or I guess it was more of a thread, on how dangerous it is to talk to Sansa when she's on deck. When she's on that balcony, she has laid out several people with
Mhm.
her sarcastic wit. And that's why I think she's kind of like this really dangerous blend of like Ned and Kat and Cersei, because like
Mhm.
she cut Baelish down like with that one line, don't bother thinking up anything. I'll assume it was something witty. You know what I mean? She
Yeah.
always like does that, like spits out that line, and then she just turns on her heel and struts off. And it's just like, God damn, I didn't even realize it, but that's going to be fun to watch to see if she does anymore. Is
Yeah,
that the same balcony that she threw Miranda off of?
No,
Oh no, I don't think so. That was
Um,
one of the backside ones.
Yeah. Although I tell you, in my rewatch, Miranda's death is certainly one of the most viscerally memorable in the whole series. I think
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
visceral in a very different way than other ones, but just the effect of her falling off that balcony and just the suddenness of it, and that's that's a memorable scene.
Absolutely.
So Mike McCauley says that scene was one of the few times where Tyrion really looked like he had been hoodwinked by Cersei. After all, he's supposed to drink and know things.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is
And-
why I we'll talk more about it because it comes up again later, but I feel like more evidence on the side of Cersei's not really pregnant, I think, in this.
Mm.
Oh, we'll get to that. Yeah, you're ringing endorsement there later on. So Dante S says, "Pretty picture was my favorite line by her to Peter."
Mm.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
Sansa's a boss.
She is.
Truth.
It's amazing how she and Arya have both turned into such badasses, and yet in very different ways.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I love, and I know we'll get there, but I love that they're allies, and it's solid.
Yeah.
We are told it is solid when Arya reunites with John.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, really, and that's the next thing. Other than
Okay.
Bran be creeping. Um,
Remember how we used to joke about Rickon when he would pop out of a
Right.
crypt or something, and it was like, oh God, creepy Rickon's back, and now it's Bran, but he's just sitting in the same goddamn courtyard the whole
I was
time.
gonna say, did you guys notice? Not only is he creeping all the time, but he is in the same spot
Yeah.
yeah.
the entire time. He's just
Yeah.
waiting for Jamie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
His old
Mhm.
friend. Well, yeah, and I'm not gonna. Another funny tweet I saw was, basically someone needs to start a GoFundMe to get a ramp for Bran so he can leave the courtyard.
Oh.
Yeah,
Funnier than I should have been.
I know. I felt the same exact way.
We get the wonderful Arya and Jon reunion after so long.
So
And,
fulfilling.
Yeah.
It
was
was.
great.
And I'm glad though that, or rather, I think it's interesting and realistic that he is not the super observant character who can
Nope.
immediately observe everything around him, and so he is surprised. It's like, how'd you sneak up on me? And
Yeah.
he's seeing her and imagining all these things. But then when she shows him the sword and he asks, like, have you ever had to use it? And just and it's that moment where I think we and Arya both just realized that he has such a fundamental misunderstanding of what she's been through.
Yeah.
For him to
Oh, yeah.
even ask that question, he has no idea.
Yeah.
She
Oh,
now
yeah.
knows what your grit knew.
Yes.
He knows
Yeah.
nothing.
He still
Yeah.
knows nothing.
And so what does she do? She makes him feel comfortable by just saying a few times.
I think it was really sweet and protective of her. It was almost like I don't really want to talk about that right now, but also, I don't think you're ready to hear what I've
You
done.
don't want to hear about your murder hobo sister.
I wonder some of it too, if it's just to make him comfortable or if there's a part of her that doesn't want him to think of her the way she is now, but wants him to remember her the way she was.
Yeah, she's definitely
Yeah,
kind
huh.
of reverted to old Arya in this scene. Like, she lets him pick her up. She lets her guard down.
Mhm.
But then when it comes down to it, and he like says something about Sansa, and she's like, I think she's the smartest person I've ever met. And he's just like,
Yeah.
wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you have changed.
I think acting like the old Arya is an act, but not necessarily, not one with like sinister intentions. But
No,
just
it's
because
comfortable.
It's comfortable. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
realizing she can slip back into that face if she wants to, for example.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
Well
That
said.
face. Good wording.
Mhm.
She does not mention that she has Valerian steel, though. I guess it's not.
No?
No.
She could have rubbed it in his face,
No.
but
Yeah. She did show it to him though.
Well, she showed him
Oh.
needle. Did
Yeah.
she show him
needle.
the dagger?
That's it.
Yeah, she showed him
Nope.
No, honey, sweetie.
Really?
She shows him needle and he shows her his Valerian steel.
Uh-huh.
And then he says, "What's that?" And she pulls out the dagger. Doesn't he? Doesn't I swear to God,
I don't
am I
think so.
hallucinating this? All right.
Um,
all
I
right.
think
Sorry.
I think
Oh
like-
no, she showed it to Gendry. I apologize. That
Yeah.
was totally my bad
Yeah.
memory.
Yeah.
You're
because
right.
we didn't get a good look at it, but I think she gave Gendry a design for a different hilt for that dagger.
Oh, that could be.
It
looked like
looked
a
to me
bazooka.
It looked to me like a double-edged, like a dual-sided weapon. It looked like it had two different things. It looked like a staff with something at both ends.
it looked like something that launches.
Yeah, I thought it was a projectile for sure. That's
was
not her
wrong.
style, so
Yeah.
I fully expect there, to
We'll
be
see it.
wrong.
I thought the
paused it and
drawing.
watched it when I paused it and really tried to get a look at it because I was just really curious of what she had thought of. And it looked to me like it was a staff or something that had two different ends and maybe pulled apart, or I don't know. It looked like there was I don't know, but that's what I thought it was.
I
Totally.
assumed that the multiple pieces and like the lines and so on that could have indicated like a projectile. I thought that was just intended to be like this is this piece and then this part slots in there and that's how.
Yeah, that makes
Oh,
sense.
okay. Well,
I
we'll
thought
see.
it was a dual weapon, but a double-edged
So
weapon.
Mike
but
Macaulay says
It's going to be
I-
cooler when she has a bazooka, but whatever.
right.
Mike Macaulay says, I find the duality intriguing. Arya's reply to John in that final dialogue of that scene where John says, I'm family too. And she replies with, don't forget that.
Right.
Ooh, good. Yes. There was
Yeah.
a lot of talk about John being a brother and John being part of the family in this episode, which is really leads into his conversation with Sam later.
Well, let me just ask
Mm.
everybody if they assume what I assume, which was that Bran told Sansa and Arya about John. And that when she said that, it wasn't just, you're not our full blood brother, but you're still our brother. But like I took it as you're my what cousin? What is she? What is Arya to John?
Well,
Lyanna's child,
cousins.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Don't forget that you're Targaryen and Stark. I think, and that's what I'm asking is, do you think that Bran has told anybody other than Sam?
If
I
you
don't
had
know.
asked me this at the end of last season, I would have thought he might have mentioned it. But after watching this episode, I don't think he did.
Yeah, I think it's clear that Bran is telling people stuff when he believes it's the right time and not before. And so I don't think he would like. It seemed to me like he only told Sam, and it was even then in the context of we're not
Discovery.
telling him until it's time.
Okay. All right. I was just reading too much into it then.
I mean, I don't know.
Makes
I'm
sense.
just that was my impression, though. I did actually just really quick look up this the diagram and some analysis of it of the thing she gives Gendry, and it does look like it is a spear-like thing with blades on both ends that is designed to come apart into two pieces.
Okay. Cool.
Right on.
So one end will be dragon glass.
Yeah.
Or
I
maybe both.
suspect I suspect that's what it'll be. It's one end is dragon glass,
Yeah.
the other is the dagger blade of it.
Sweet.
That sounds cool.
So
And
when
I
she-
did take it when she had said, she was protecting her family, that she included John in that statement.
Yeah,
So
I
Oh,
think
yeah.
when he said, when he said, I'm family too, you better remember it. Yeah.
I feel
Mhm.
like I totally agree. And I feel like that was probably the only relaxed moment that Arya maybe had the entire episode was at the end of the hug with John, because she hugged him tight and then she just kind of like relaxed and enjoyed the fact that she was hugging him. And like just that little shift to me was like, yeah, she means it. She really, really means it.
So Mike says, I understood it as Bran wanted John to hear it first.
Yeah.
Right on.
So I
That
could see
makes
that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then we get kind of explicit conversation in the episode that Sam maybe could have told John sooner, but was like literally avoiding him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can get that. I understand that. So I also wanted to mention how much I loved Sansa running into Sandor, and basically like the Hound gave her the highest compliment ever by calling her a cold little bitch.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think we, I don't think we saw the Hound and Sansa interact, did we?
No, they have not
No.
interacted.
Yeah.
No.
But
We
I
also
agree.
did not.
I agree,
also-
Nutty. It was perfect. And I feel like she maybe now Christiana's got me saying maybe she slipped on another face because she presented to him exactly the way he is to other people. Cold, mean, says what she says, fuck off the rest, and
Yep.
and knew that that's the one that he would be the most receptive to.
Well,
And then she put her flirty face on for Gendry.
yeah.
Girl, no, she took the face off. That was Arya.
I don't want to skip past more on her
Yeah.
and the Hound though first, just because the amazing complexity of that final moment with the Hound and Arya where he is realizing it feels like this awful thing that you did to me, that you robbed me and left me to die. And so like, I'm mad about that. Like I'd be mad at someone else, but we are both fully aware that that was doing exactly the sort of lessons that he like was teaching her. And so like that she did that indicated that she did actually respect him enough to learn lessons from that. And so for him to say you're cold, and he's saying that, but recognizing like, she learned from me, and it's not even like he's not even seeing it as a bad thing, but it's like in a way, what she did is like honoring me in a way.
Yeah, I think he was proud.
It's complicated.
Yeah, like a father's pride almost. Yeah.
And since that's probably why you're still alive, you know.
I love that. Like I said, it's the sweetest thing he's ever said to anyone. And in addition to the fact that Sandor and Sansa don't meet up in this episode, I also wanted to point out Jorah and Lyanna don't meet up either.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Oh snap. That'll be interesting.
Is Lyanna's she's like a niece or something, isn't she?
She'd be his niece.
Yeah. He didn't have kids of his own, I don't think.
No.
Because he had an expensive wife, which
he had an expensive wife.
I don't think he had kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, so relations to be sure. And so still interesting, but not like a literal father-daughter.
No.
In fact, the fact that exiled so long, she probably has never known him.
Yeah, she's likely never known him, but also basically he was Jorah's son. So like one could argue that he should be the Lord, and then she can say, yeah, but you were exiled, and he's like, yeah but I did, you know. So there is that.
I also think he has zero interest in being the Lord.
I agree. I think he has zero interest.
He turned down the sword, and that's the portable version, so I can't see him on the land. Portable.
A portable lordship is the sword. I love it. So
do you make it explicit that Gendry is smithing with that dragon glass?
Yes,
he makes the badass axe for the hound, and making those arrowheads, and that is established.
Yeah,
looking hot as ever.
Saying "milady" and whatnot.
Pushing her buttons.
I think it's another kind of Arya slipping into that, that other relationship,
And it's a total callback to when they were in the woods,
Yeah. So I always knew you were one of the ladies. You don't know any other ladies.
Yeah. You don't know any other rich girls.
Rich girls.
So
back up a little bit. We've got Davos, Tyrion, and Varys.
Oh, yes.
Walk into it. No, they talk about how to woo the North.
I want that joke.
They did a nice walk and talk here.
Yeah.
Decide that clearly, Dany and Jon just need to get married. That's how you cement the North.
There was a subtle moment.
Forward.
There was a subtle moment with those three where I think we see Tyrion have a little bit of this realization that, like, in his head, he kind of has Varys and Davos like they belong in the box of like the old man advisor sort of characters. And then, but this moment of him realizing, oh shit, that's me now too, isn't it?
I'm not that old.
Like, wait,
as well as him.
I also love the dig at the onion sigil.
Yeah. And
I
Davos
can't blame you.
It all just rolls off his back because he kind of just laughed at the comment about him being the oldest one, and he laughs.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm happy. I'm thrilled to be an old man because it means I'm still alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's got a totally different POV.
Davos is just such an effortlessly noble person, and I don't mean like noble in terms of highborn, but just like being a like ideal, embodying noble ideals of. He's just such a good guy. Like every smart character who meets him immediately respects him because he's great. Davos is great.
He tells it like it is, and
I think other than the sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, other than supporting Stannis for so long, I don't think he's made a single bad move in the whole show. That was kind of 4 seasons worth, wasn't it? So.
Yeah.
True, but you have to remember that showed his loyalty,
Yeah.
but it also showed that it wasn't blind loyalty.
Mhm.
Because when he knew Stannis was gonna burn Gendry, he broke Gendry out
Yeah.
Mhm.
and saved him.
Yeah, and he didn't give up. He stayed in to continue giving counsel, even
Yeah.
though it wasn't the counsel that Stannis wanted.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and in fact, he was going to be executed until at the last second, Melisandre said she saw in the fire that, no, we're going north, and you need his help, so don't kill him. I mean, that's the only reason he wasn't executed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, some bad decisions.
Yeah, but he's great. He's so cool. I love Davos
Yeah.
so much.
He is.
And
For real.
it's nice to see other characters we like also liking Davos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So they mentioned, they should get married, and then immediately we have Dany telling Jon to check his sister's attitude, which we touched on earlier.
Mhm.
And then suddenly we get dragon rides, and
Yeah.
Jon is able to ride a dragon.
I love
Obviously
Daenerys'
thought of
whole-
you for this episode. I mean, this whole sequence. I'm like,
I love-
Nettie's losing her shit.
I was totally losing my shit. I love Dany's whole coolness and how excited she is by her own dragon. She's very much like me in this sense. And it's, well, what if he doesn't like me? And she's like, well, then it was very nice. No.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I just love because she's just so cool and nonchalant. But meanwhile, I know
Mhm.
she knows her dragons. She's like, yeah, no, he'll let you on there.
Mhm.
It's all good.
Yeah. I was astounded that we got this so early in the season.
I know.
I felt for sure someone else getting to ride a dragon was like in episode 4 of 6 in the
Yeah.
season or something.
Yeah.
And so to have it here, it was great, and I really enjoyed how visceral they made it in terms of making it clear, like there's no saddle or straps or anything. You were literally just hanging on, and when the dragon swoops around and dives and stuff, that's you are not like in a comfortable seat. You were hanging on while turning upside down and stuff. And I thought that was really effectively portrayed. But I also think the fact that we got this so early, I think that means I got a hunch that means something's going to happen to Dany.
Oh no.
Ooh.
I don't know.
Crazy.
Her dragons would be
Foreshadowing.
so upset.
Yeah.
I think it was interesting before he rode, which of course, I mean, it was a stunning footage. It was just an amazing scene, cinematic masterpiece, all that, the dragon flight. But I think it was interesting right before that, we discovered that the dragons are not eating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or not eating enough.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, they're not eating enough.
Yeah.
And so do we think that that's like the cold affecting their metabolism, grief over Viserion? Do they maybe sense him nearby?
Column A, column B.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the cold is like obviously a contributing factor, but could be more than that. We don't know. I mean, in the sense that they say they don't like the cold. They don't like it this far
Well,
north.
yeah.
But could it be more than that? It really could.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought was a really interesting parallel was the idea that, she flew him to this weird little ice cave and makes the joke about how, like, if we just stayed here, nobody would ever find us. And I was just thinking, that is a crazy parallel to him and Ygritte.
Yes, yes, it was.
Yeah.
Where it's like, we could just stay here and not join the war and nobody would ever know. And it was just like, that's got to be on purpose.
Yeah.
Totally on purpose.
I
That's
think
another
they
one of
wanted
those
us-
Force Awakens things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they wanted us to be called back to that. It definitely raises some flags, don't it? I mean, on top of the whole, ant thing.
So, I don't have a dog, but the way that Drogon looks at Jon, is that what dogs do?
Totally.
It was so creepy. I can't.
I loved it so much. It was like, no, I'm watching you. And John's like, yeah, I'm watching you too.
I mean, I'm not really great with dragon expressions, but I mean, it was just, yeah.
It
I
spoke
think-
volumes.
It was very well animated because it really just conveyed this whole thing of I have no investment whatsoever in the weird stuff that you are going to do with each other right now, but I'm just making sure you don't get up to anything like bad.
Yeah.
So I'm watching you,
He's
but I
like
don't
the Secret
care.
Service.
Yeah.
He's ready to
So-
pounce.
Mike McCauley says, am I the only one that would have been okay with the writers shaving off a few minutes of the flying scene to give us more productive content somewhere else, since the ep was 54 minutes? It just seems to me that the flying time was a little excessive. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but no, I was pretty happy with the length of the flying scene.
Yeah.
Right about where it should be.
Yeah, I'm good.
I felt like it did go on a long time for an episode where so many other things were very rapid fire. It was certainly the longest single scene in the whole
Mhm.
episode for sure, right? I didn't time it, but it had to be.
Yeah, they're spending
And-
dragon money, baby.
Right.
Well, right. And I can't help but think, like this is, like my meta suspicion that maybe something's going to happen to Danny because of doing this early in the season is kind of the same idea of we need a big dragon moment and we really want to sell the romantic side of what's going on with Danny and John, because we really have to establish that firmly so that when the next thing happens, that's where we are. And that's kind of what I was thinking, is that we needed to make a big deal of this scene to establish the current dynamic so that it can be upset by something.
And
So
maybe if it's the
Mike's-
super, super awesome, nobody will worry about not seeing Ghost.
Oh, I did when I showed the scene to Tech. He did say, "So what about Ghost?" And I said, "No, you're seeing dragons instead of ghosts."
Yeah.
Those people are pissed.
Yeah.
When
So-
was the last time we saw Ghost on screen? Did we even see him in season 7?
when John was resurrected.
Oh, yeah. So that
Yeah.
was so not even season
I
7.
believe it was then. He may have showed up since, but that's the last one that's cemented in my brain.
Was that
Huh.
before?
Yeah, when John went north, he did not take him.
Yeah.
Didn't
No,
he pop
I
up
think
somewhere
he
and
didn't take him in
save?
Persis.
Did he pop up and save Sam or Bran or somebody? At the...
Yes, he did, but that was before. That
Okay.
was long
Okay.
before.
Right. on.
Okay, so Mike says it seemed to me. Oh, sorry. Some articles I read interpreted Drogon's expression was jealousy, whereas I thought it was just him guarding Danny.
Yeah.
And then Dante S says, "I love the scene until the dragon stare."
Yeah.
That's what we refer to as gargoyling.
Yes.
Shut up. So, yeah.
I thought that it read very animal-like to me of
Yeah.
I'm watching because I'm interested in what my people are doing, but I have no particular emotional investment in whatever it is. It's more like you're watching a strange little animal do its strange little animal thing, and you're just like, huh, that's weird. Like, I think that's what it was. It's like, it wasn't jealous. It was more like, you are with my person, so I'm watching you.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's like, dude, that's your aunt. You know? Dude.
I don't know.
We can't talk, but we know things.
Okay, so
Man,
by
I
can
the
smell
way-
it.
had an image of like a Look Who's Talking parody where the dragons can talk and we hear like the
That's
dragons
hysterical.
voiceover through everything.
So here's the thing: there are only 2 living dragons right now.
Hmm.
And we've never really gone into it, but everybody's assumed they're both male. I have this theory that if there's going to be more dragons, like they're going to be like clownfish where they can change their gender and they'll have no choice but to, breed with each other. So I don't think they care about aunt uncle thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Targaryens don't really anyways, so.
Well, it's also, I think that's kind of a long-term question too at this point where nobody's really got their sights set on anything more than a year away.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Agreed.
We had kind of skipped around, so we actually teleport John to have it out with Sansa. And
yes.
you already touched on that about his position and her position, and they come to a pretty quick, understanding of each other.
Right,
Yep.
things aren't resolved, but the tension is primarily between Sansa and Danny rather than
Mhm.
Yeah.
John is the peacemaker in between rather than one of the sides.
Yeah. Like just give my new girlfriend a chance, okay?
Mhm.
Look, I've only ever cared about 2 girls in my life, and I really don't want this one to be I don't want to fight this one.
One of the interesting elements here is something that has been established in the show very strongly, like repeatedly, is this idea that until you've seen them, you don't understand how serious the
Yeah.
Army of the Dead is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I think there's some aspect of that with, Sansa hasn't
Yeah.
seen them. But you could make the exact same argument in a way of Sansa's concerns about Cersei. Because it's one thing for John to say, well, yeah, I met Cersei and she seemed like she's tough, but then she agreed to what I
Yeah.
wanted. So what's the problem? Whereas Sansa is like, oh, no.
There's a whole other universe.
No, that's not her thing. That's not what she does. And so, even though obviously there are other characters who are very familiar with Cersei who also were fooled, like Tyrion,
Mhm.
that like Tyrion, I think was in this weird position of he seemed so sure of this whole like you don't believe it till you've seen it thing, where he just assumed like that must have convinced her. That
Yeah.
it convinced me, so it must plus the whole question. Well, I don't want to skip too far ahead there, but
Well, just
this
him
idea-
knowing,
Yeah.
him knowing how she is with her children and all that, and assuming she's pregnant.
Right.
Now
Which
she has
is
something to live for, which he says. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. So, what's next? Is it Sam time?
Danny and Jorah find Sam.
Oh my
Aw.
god.
Aw.
That was almost, I mean, obviously
That
the
was
Umber
heartbreaking.
scene was worse, but oh my
Yeah.
god. That was awful.
So this was one of those examples where I had not mentally prepared myself for all the nuance of the connections between those particular dots, because you got this whole network of
Same.
different characters,
Yeah.
right? But the idea that, like, I remembered about that Sam would probably have complicated feelings about Daenerys because she burned his father and brother, because we were reminded about that in the scenes from last time, right? And so, but I had forgotten what it would mean that Sam was also the one that saved Jorah.
Yeah.
And so to set
Yeah.
that all up for Daenerys to be in like this primo awkward position of like, I'm here to show my gratitude to this wonderful person who saved my advisor, and isn't it going to be great for him that I'm going to go be nice to him? And then he's like, oh, Tarly. And she's like,
Yeah.
So, yeah, if I could go back in time, I probably wouldn't
so-
have raised your dad.
Randall? Not
Yeah.
Randall.
Now, to her credit, she did not dissemble about that at all. She realized, oh, okay, well, clearly this is something he has a right to know, and I'm not going to
Yeah.
beat around the bush about it.
And
Yeah.
I'll give her credit. She didn't try to spin it.
Yeah.
No.
She was
no.
just like, this is what happened. And
Mhm.
She doesn't
yeah.
know how, clearly.
Yeah.
No.
Well, and I think this is where, too, that, when more than one of her advisors tried to tell her,
Yeah.
did you have to burn the sun too?
Yeah.
Did you really?
Right.
Did you
Yeah.
have to? You feel like you did, but I think here's where it's going to be a problem. And sure enough, I think that with Sam, like, hears about his dad, and he's like, oh, that's awful. I'm really upset, but at least I suppose I could go home now. There's the bright side. But like with his brother dead too, it's like,
Mhm.
what even happened to his mom and his sister? We don't even know.
We don't know. And they didn't really get into Sam's relationship with his brother
Thank
in
you.
the show.
Yes.
But in the books, it is mentioned that his brother was never mean to him.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
His
true.
brother wasn't like his father.
Mhm.
There was
He
a
loved his
little-
brother, I would say, even, right?
Yeah, there was a bit more similar feelings like with Jamie and Tyrion with Sam and his brother. It may not have been as tight as Jaime and Tyrion, but there was definitely like you could see him going, all right, but if my dad wasn't a problem,
Yeah.
you know, and my brother became Lord, we could then be friends.
Well,
Right. Well,
the
we
reason
saw-
it was complicated, though, too, is that the father preferred the younger son,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's why he sent Sam away. So the
Yeah.
conflict I feel between Dickon on the show and Sam is purely from his father, from their father.
Yeah.
It's all by him. It's just I don't think that Sam holds anything against his brother. I think he loves
Right.
him, and he is absolutely shook by this revelation. It's
Oh, yeah.
just it's like
Of
the
course,
worst thing that he could probably imagine a ruler doing. And not just
Yep.
because it's his family, but because he said executed a prisoner. And that's a powerful phrasing, you know?
Yep. Well, and he brings it up again when he talks to John, and he says, you know, you've had to do that before, but you've also let people go, and you've let people live when they didn't follow you because you understood their motivations.
Yes.
And
Sorry, I jumped ahead.
I think though that like the scene that we saw between Sam and Dickon at one dinner they spent at the House Tarley, when we saw that like they clearly are very different from one another. It's like Sam tries to make small talk, but he doesn't understand. It's like, are we eating the one that you killed today? And Dickon's just like, no, that one's curing. And
Right.
Oh yeah, okay. So like they're clear, but there's not. You're right that there's not that animosity there, and so it really seemed like, you know, we're driving home the point for Dany that she's realizing it's one thing to kill the father in that circumstance, but you choosing to kill the son also. We told you that was going to be a bad idea. We told you afterwards that it was going to be a problem, but this is where she, I think, finally is realizing, oh, I might someday want to not terrify and devastate someone, and it'll turn out that I have done so by accident already.
Yeah.
And so that scene was so heartbreaking. Sam's performance was amazing, but I also like, you know, I think we're meant to understand Dany made a mistake in the past, but I think to her credit, she handles herself very well in that scene.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I think Jorah was like a nice little gem in that scene as well. He didn't say but maybe 2 words, but he, like, when he made the connection that it was Sam's father and brother, it was like he couldn't even look up. Like he just couldn't even face that, you know?
Yep.
And that he just
right. In another, if a tone was a different show, we could imagine Sam running away and then Dany turning to Jorah and just like slapping him on the arm. You couldn't have told me that he was a freaking Tarly.
Yeah. I think it was Jorah who pointed out it's like, it's not just that he was the only one, he was the only one willing.
Yeah.
Or was it Sam that pointed out
that
he was
Yeah,
the only
the others
one
could
willing?
have.
No, it was Jorah who said it,
Yeah. So it's like, it's not just like that this kid has special powers. No. He defied the rules. He broke the rules to help me. And he was the only one willing to do it.
Yeah.
So
I wonder, because it feels to me like putting that, you know, this is jumping ahead to John and Sam at the end, but you know, putting the words in Sam's mouth that like, you gave up your crown to save your people, would she do the same? I feel like putting those words in the mouth of a character like Sam is meaningful for the story the show is trying to tell.
Oh yeah.
Because it makes me wonder even if it's possible that the fight with the Night King is not even like the end. Like maybe that actually goes more quickly than we would expect.
Yeah.
And then the question is, okay, but now what does Dany want after that? And it's like, you know, so that's just a wondering. I have no idea really, obviously, but I feel like it's meaningful to have a character like Sam say something like that is way different than if 100 other characters said it.
Yep. Agreed.
Totally
Because
agree.
other people, they're more motivated by power, and Sam has never been motivated by power.
Yeah.
So for him to say that, it comes from a more pure and objective place.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
think.
so, like, on the one hand, John has spent the whole episode just talking about how, like, everyone's mad at me, but I'm just trying to save all your freaking lives.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I don't think learning the truth about his heritage is going to make John somehow suddenly start saying, oh, well, I'm going to just go trump Danny's right to rule here. He's not going to do that because his whole thing already, he had already given up a crown in order to help his people. He's not going to change his mind, but it does plant a seed of, first of all,
it complicates things.
Yeah. Not to mention the fact that he now knows that she's his aunt and
Mhm.
so
yeah, that's a good way to put it. Ugh.
May not have sunk in yet, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm suddenly getting like images from that Joe Dirt movie. It's like, oh no, and just start puking. But marry your aunt anyway. It's no big deal. It's not like you grew up together. It'd be weird if he married one of the people he grew up with as sisters
Right.
that some people were trying to ship last year, and I was like, no, none of that.
Yeah. So they kind of made a big deal, I think, of the crypts of Winterfell. You know, in the opening, they dove into them.
Yes.
You've got the symbolism where John's getting this news, and you've got his mom's visage looking at him while he's getting the news.
And
then Ned's too, like this idea of like, my father, the most honorable man I ever knew, you're going to say he lied to me. And, you know, like having those statues there, like it's such a great place to have that scene happen. But I think you're right that there's going to be, you know, this reminding us about the crypts is going to be meaningful somehow too.
Are we going to have zombie Starks?
If I were on camera
Not
right now,
sure.
Sean
and I
Bean
were in
coming
my
back.
home studio, I'd be bouncing on my ball, covering my mouth, because this is something that I think would be a book spoiler in my reaction. So I'm not going to say anything. Which I didn't think we'd have any more of that.
So yeah, interesting. There's still some weird territory.
Yeah. Although we know that even if we were to have white Ned Stark, we know his bones were like, they were returned to Winterfell.
Yeah.
It was that whole peace offering that Cersei gave it to Catelyn. So the bones are there, but the bones were like, there's like just bones, no rotting flesh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay.
That would mean dire wolves too, right?
Well, and of course.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're doing that.
Though. I don't think
none of them are at Winterfell.
Previous generations would be.
Maybe. Now we're really going deep.
Yeah.
Y'all freaking me out in the crypt.
I do
dark things.
What I
and
do
of course,
like is
Bran's
that
creeping.
Sam emphasized that your dad Ned was honorable, but if he didn't do this, you'd be dead.
Mm-hmm.
And he promised his
from
sister.
Robert.
He also promised his sister he would protect him.
And what I like is that he never really says that's not your father. It's this is still your family, but this is the truth of your parentage.
Well, and I think the implication too, when we go all the way back to them leaving when they last saw each other, this whole idea of like the idea that Ned perhaps would have been willing to tell John the truth once he was a sworn brother of the Night's Watch.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I did read somewhere somebody said this Sam is actually fulfilling Ned's promise of when we see each other again, I'll tell you. And so he's seeing his father and Sam's telling him.
I like it.
It's kind of cool.
I like it. I'll take that stretch.
So, King's
Yeah.
Landing, is that where we're going next?
Whoa. We
Oh,
have a
was
brief.
the last?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just say there was one last bit of Winterfell.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were going to save that for the end.
Oh, I don't know if we're doing all of Winterfell. We might as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
that's
we
fine.
kind of mentioned it already.
Yeah,
So,
So
Creepin' Bran.
a dark-haired Jamie finally arrives.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was my thought at first. Well, wait, Bran's been out there all night, but I guess he was probably
Yeah.
taking breaks.
Mm, I'm waiting
Because
for his,
from the earlier, yeah, since he was in the courtyard the whole time, I guess he didn't have,
Yeah. and maybe
he
just
knew he was
because
coming, just not
Yeah.
when.
well, and I hadn't necessarily put together in my head that he was going to be getting to Winterfell right away. So for
Yeah.
that reason, I think I had not really processed the idea of what happens when Jamie and Bran see each other again. And I think the show did a really good job at sort of making us not even really consider that until we suddenly see them together and we're like, we
Yeah.
have exactly the same reaction that Jamie did. It's like, oh, this could be
So-
really bad.
When you guys saw the cloaked figure, who did you think it might be? 'Cause I didn't think it was going to be Jamie.
I guessed that it was Jamie right before they revealed him, but
Yeah.
I wondered who else it might be because, of course, we have one other character that we know is heading that way.
Yeah,
But it would have been
didn't-
surprising for him to arrive so soon.
yeah. I suspected it was Jamie pretty quick.
I was clueless. I was like,
I was
like,
Did Cold Hands come back?
That's
Oh,
that's
God.
the other person that I thought it might
Yeah.
be. It's like at first I was like, is it Cold Hands? But I don't know. It felt like not only was he north of the wall, but it seemed like a real sort of I'm sacrificing myself so you can get away
Yeah.
sort of scene. So it would be surprising for him to be back. And then, but like I guessed that it would be Jamie before they revealed him. But yeah, I wondered about Cold Hands first.
And then that look to Bran, I was just like, I screamed out. I was like, oh, snap. And then
Right.
it ends, and I'm like, oh.
Well, and we get the
It was-
scenes from next time that it's like not only the brand thing, but also the reminder for Daenerys of like, oh, you're the one who killed my father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which-
Okay,
Yeah.
so I didn't get any previews because I am 100% legit watching this without using a VPN because now in Canada, if you get Crave, you can get Crave with HBO. So I am a cord cutter, as people maybe remember. So, but Crave doesn't have previously on and doesn't have trailers. So I didn't see any of this.
Well, it didn't really tell us anything except that question comes up.
Okay.
That she basically is saying, you're the one who killed my father, that sort of thing. But, I think but what's also indicated is that there's not a lot of time to deal with any of those questions because guess who's here? Who else has arrived? So
Frosty McFrosterson.
yeah, so
It
Battle of
seemed like-
Winterfell seems imminent.
Ah.
Bran gave kind of just an ever so slight smile.
Yeah,
Seemed like he did.
yeah. I
Your
think
chickens have come home to roost.
And made one of the greatest memes of all time. Jamie saying, what did he say? You need a push, and
Oh,
Bran says,
yeah,
Can
yeah.
you give me a hand?
Could you give me a hand?
yeah.
Oh, snap.
That's pretty good.
Oh.
Holy cow.
So yeah, that'll be interesting next. So King's Landing.
Do we want to do King's Landing or briefly deal with like Theon?
Oh yeah.
sure, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk then.
Well, because that happened early in the episode, and I was astounded because my prediction last week was that Yara was going to show up only to die, but instead she got to show up only to run back to Pike and not be on the show for that reason. So
Yeah.
Right.
Well, but it was important. She was rescued by Theon.
yeah,
She
no, I
knocked the shit out of him, and they kind of came back together. So it was like, yeah, she's gone now, but I'm okay with that because that was a
Well-
really fantastic scene.
And what I love is that she gave him her blessing to go
Yeah.
north.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
like, I'll go take care of a place that we can retreat at. I'll be the backup, but you have my blessing
Yeah.
to go north and to fight with the Starks. And I'm not even going to be hurt that you want to be with them because they feel like your family.
So I'm fully supporting her. You know, you're my
Yeah.
queen. I'll go where you want. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's like, hey, go north. Do what you got to do.
That was awesome, actually.
Yeah.
And it's Yara, so I would not presume that it's going to take her very long to get the Iron Islands whipped into damn shape.
Are you kidding? She already has it. She's done.
She's going to be
did it.
back by episode 3 in my mind. She's going to be at the Battle of the Night Watch, whatever, Night King, Night Watch,
Yeah.
Night King, whatever it is.
One of the things that the show has definitely turned hand wavy about is just how many ships any given fleet has at any time. You know, it's like, you know, the entire fleet's decimated, but now you have another one for where'd you get it? Ugh, who knows?
Whatever. We're good.
Yeah, I loved that she didn't just, you know, die, but like my prediction was kind of based on thinking that she wasn't going to be in the season very much.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that it was for this reason instead of the one that I predicted.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, true. Amen.
Well, and presumably Euron's going to go home. He has now fucked the queen, so
Well, we'll
he
see
can
what
head
his.
off to Pike. But yeah,
I think well we'll talk more
should have
about
stayed pace in advance,
Yeah.
right?
So Mike is asking if this is before or after Euron got to bang the queen. So Euron talks
That was
with
earlier.
Yara, goes off to bang the queen. While that's happening, during the banging is when Theon rescues Yara, and then we're talking about the after. So we're kind of like glossing over Euron's thing so that we can just kind of address Euron on its own instead of going back and forth. But yeah. Euron was like, I'm gonna fuck a queen. Get over yourself.
And who would have thought that Theon and Yara are like the most normal siblings on the show?
But yeah, I was that was nice to see. It was also kind of there's the sort of the nice parallel of, you know, the time that Yara had come to rescue Theon, but he turned her away because he was still brainwashed by Ramsay. And but, you know, just this moment of, it's like, you know, I wasn't ready for you before when you tried to help me, but I'm going to try to help you now. And
yeah,
it was nice.
Yeah.
Hey, dude, hold my axe.
Yeah. So that said, you know, like obviously they kind of hand wave how easily he managed to get on there, but I think it's also established in the story just by, well, Euron's distracted. So, but it'll be interesting to see the fallout of Euron realizing that Yara got scooped out from under his nose.
Oh yeah. And presumably they've just been doing a lot of sailing. The guys are at the whorehouses or whatever, so that was probably a skeleton crew on the ship.
Funny thing that I came across was the first guy on the ship when Theon comes to rescue Yara. The first person that they show gets an arrow through his eye. It's literally the actor that plays Mac from Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, that's funny.
That was his cameo.
That was his cameo.
2-second death scene.
Yeah,
there was another person that I don't recognize who it was. The name, I didn't recognize the guy's name, that also was in that same scene. I think it was in the ship battle. But yeah, I was dying. I just didn't. I mean, Ed Sheeran was a shock, but come on, Mac from Sunny in Philadelphia, that is just a real damn shock. Who thought that up? It's freaking crazy.
Speaking of Ed Sheeran, like it's a bit part from another scene.
Yeah,
they basically, it's like due to all the backlash they basically had. It's like let's make a big point of saying that character got his face burned off,
right?
And he has no ears.
Yeah, so everybody's fan rage. There you go. He's a misery now. You can stop being angry at him for doing a cameo. It's all right, y'all.
I love that cameo, and all the haters can just suck it.
I agree. I mean, I didn't even know who he was, but not knowing who he was, the scene seemed fine.
Yeah.
So,
And
he had more
honestly,
hairspray than most, but it was good.
If you're getting mad at Ed Sheeran for being on Game of Thrones, just go look up him singing backstage with Don McLean, and you'll suddenly fall in love and go, okay, yeah, I'm okay with this. I discovered
On
that video.
Sesame
It was
Street.
amazing.
Sesame Street. Oh,
It's
I
got a
love that
great song.
song.
He lives in two different worlds.
Oh,
I gotta go check that out.
it's so good. It's a favorite in our house. Sorry.
So back to the entry of King's Landing. Cersei gets terrible, terrible news. The dead have broken through the wall. And good, because her army's coming. She's very happy. Which leads straight to the Euron Yara scene where he's taunting her. And,
I feel like Cersei wants Christiana and my prediction to happen.
I think so too.
Everything's
Well,
burnt down.
I feel like the show is setting that up because Tyrion's whole thing of, I believe that she's going to help because I think she's pregnant, which means she has something to live for, which by transitive property, if she's not really pregnant because it was all a manipulation to begin with, which is my theory, she doesn't have anything to live for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
She is kind of like, she's got a death wish at this point. She's kind of just wanting to burn it all down.
Yeah.
And if I'm gonna go, you all are gonna go. I'm gonna make sure that
Right.
nobody's happy.
Well, and if
Well-
she's the last person standing that's claiming the Iron Throne, then her last moments on the earth will be as the only queen of Westeros. And is there anything else that Cersei wants at this point,
No.
other than to see her brother's dead?
Well, and remember too, like it goes back to the scene when she thought Stannis was going to take King's Landing and she was about to poison herself against Tommen
Yeah.
rather than be taken alive.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
I feel like she's got a self-destructive impulse, and and I think we're also seeing like the chickens come home to roost to some extent, that she's like, I think the reason she gives into Euron is because she just realizes, I literally have no one else.
Yeah.
I have Qyburn and Sir Robert Strong here, and this guy. So,
He's the only one showing up.
and he
Well, it
also
seemed like
is
she was
absolutely-
painted into a corner, though. He's like made a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to earn her. He's like, well, what else do you need? Fuck, I gave you redemption or revenge or
She's
whatever he said.
realizing like
Whatever he
can't
said.
just string him along eventually because he's not going to put up with it, and he doesn't have to. He
Yeah.
could just leave.
Yep.
That's just, he is, if she is not giving him enough, he could just leave.
Yeah.
And he really has no reason to stay other than what she can potentially reward him with. And she's realizing, oh, shoot, I do actually need him. And so like, that whole scene where he's really pushing, but he's making the point of like, look, I really liked the idea of that I needed to earn this, but come on now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally a rescue at this point.
Yeah, and her, I think, not wanting to give in, but I think walking away, realizing I can't. I have to because he's going to leave, and and then her afterwards, like when he says I'm going to put a baby in your belly, and that, I think her reaction shot there is amazing.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really intended.
You mean how she drinks wine?
Yeah.
No, her eyes are all glassy and tear. It's really a powerful moment. Yeah.
No, I'm pointing out the fact that she's drinking wine in this scene, and in
Right.
the scene where Tyrion decided that she was pregnant, she wasn't drinking wine, which only to me says that Christiana was right, that it was all a deception.
Yeah. In fact, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if she had Qyburn help her out to not ever have any more.
Well, so that was I was going to ask. Basically, is her reaction? I thought could be read two ways. One way could have been the, "Oh, you dumb fuck, Jamie's kid's already in there. Oh, hey, I'll just make him think it's his." Or was it, "You dumb fuck, I can't get pregnant," and nobody knows, but
Well, or maybe she took her prophecy and she just maybe she did get pregnant. Maybe she terminated it. Maybe she'll terminate the next one too.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
I don't think she wants more children, and I think that
Yeah.
it was a threat. Euron's, she had to have sex with him, and then he
Mhm.
threw a threat at her at the end in her mind. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
Yep.
This idea of like sleeping with him once is not going to satisfy him.
No.
I'm going to have to keep placating him. What have I?
Yep.
This
She's-
situation I've ended up in is untenable, and I don't. She doesn't know what to do. I think
So
She's
Mike-
literally reenacting her earlier life with Robert, pretending that his children, Jamie's
Mhm.
children, was his, and so she might be like possibly back in that. And I don't think she's going to go quietly.
She's not going to start that cycle again. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mike in the chat says that what if her whole fake pregnancy backfires and Euron does put a baby in her belly?
Ooh.
I wondered if that was a real fear she was having.
Yeah.
In that scene of
Yeah.
just realizing she wasn't actually pregnant, but oh God, what if that really happened?
Yeah.
Like
Mm.
how she does not want that to happen.
Yeah. So
And
maybe she
didn't
needs
she-
to switch her wine for some tansy tea.
Mm.
Mm.
Do that before? Weren't we led to believe that she did that before?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
right. Qyburn gave her a special something.
Yeah. So this wouldn't be her first
Well,
termination.
and I don't know
That
if
condition.
it was mentioned in the show, but in the books, when we get Cersei chapters, we know that's what she did anytime that Robert was in her bed. She
It
would
was-
drink
Oh, that's
tansy tea.
right. That's right.
It was a show invention that she did actually have
Have a
one-
child, yeah.
Yeah, that died as an infant. But that was in the show only. That hadn't been established in the books.
Yep.
So I wonder if it was a lie that she said for sympathy or something that really happened. Either way, it's
I
Cersei.
think that it really happened because if I recall properly, when she describes the baby, she describes a head of black hair.
Right.
Yeah,
And I
I-
don't think
yeah.
that she would bring that up just to gain sympathy with Kat, because
Right.
that would be kind of pointing at her kids.
I think it was real. I mean, because
Yeah.
this before Robert died, it did give us a couple of scenes where she admitted that like she wanted it to work at first.
Yeah.
And that was
And
true.
it was
from the
really
books as
it
well.
only turned bad. She wasn't because she knew that he never really loved her. He always wanted Lyanna instead, and that's what soured everything. That she
Yep.
didn't feel that way at the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, there's this one, and it happens a couple of times this season, but I feel like this episode we saw so many characters that were literally facing the wrath or the discomfort or whatever of their previous bad choices. We have it with Theon having to face Yara, which worked out well. She only headbutted him. You know, Sansa having to face Tyrion, and it was kind of a quick conversation, but she just kind of like offhandedly says, "Sorry, I left you after Joffrey died," and he's like, "Yeah, it kind of sucked," you know, and then she kind of looks back like, "Oh yeah, I guess that probably did, huh?" And then we've got Jamie having to face down creepy Bran, Cersei having to bang Euron, Jon finding out he's banging his aunt, and Dany, well, you know, I guess she's got it on a couple fronts.
You know, consequences of burning the Tarleys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's
So
interesting.
I feel we have to mention Cersei's desire for elephants.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, that was my second favorite meme after Creepy Bran.
Elephants for Cersei. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have the
So
great
that's
one.
a giant book nod.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because in the books, the Golden Company, it's often mentioned, and don't forget about their elephants.
Mhm.
Oh.
So I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I loved that.
Speaking of the
exotic.
Golden Company, I am befuddled by the show's choice to personify the Golden Company with a general and give the general absolutely no actual character at all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A guy.
My note says Captain Who's It.
Mm.
Yeah. It's like here
Captain
is
Stand-in.
guy, Strickland, I thought they said.
Yeah,
Whatever.
Strickland. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was because I thought, well, that's a mundane name for this world.
Yeah, it's like Harry Strickland or something like
Yeah.
that. It's like, and it's like, here is a banal blonde guy, and we're told he's the leader of the Golden Company, and that's it. And it's
Yeah.
like, why even have an actual character instead of just be faceless?
Yeah.
If you're not going to give that character some sort of meat to chew on.
They could have shaved a couple seconds off the dragon flight for that.
Yeah.
Not many, but a couple.
So for the book readers, there's like so much stuff that goes into the Golden Company and how it's actually was founded by descendants of Targaryens that left Westeros, and all of these things, like that's why this guy had such light hair and all of this nonsense, but we've never got into it in the shows at all. And so this was just basically, yeah, we know it's in the books, we're not going into it, I think.
I feel like it's a weird, awkward in between.
Yeah.
Because what the show could have easily done is just not giving them face to the Golden Company at all.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Just a bunch of soldiers, and Euron brought them over, and there is no general.
Yeah.
And it would have been so easy to do that. But instead, they chose to cast an actor and give him a name, and yet as presented, he's like practically a non-entity.
Yeah.
He's like a cardboard cutout of a character so far. Like, why bother if they're not going to give him actually anything to do? Now, I mean, maybe he'll get more to do, but certainly in this episode, it's more like, yeah, here's this cardboard cutout of Blondie McHandsome face. Unless they're going to try to do something like, oh, maybe she's going to fall in love with him and Euron is going to get jealous or something. Like, but that's a weird arc to take Cersei at this point.
No,
So-
I'm just going to go off the cuff and let's just Cersei's going to tell Strickland, hey, kill Euron. Get him out of here.
I mean,
I don't need him anymore.
that's
He
what
got
the
me
mountain.
I needed.
She's got the mountain. I mean, she'll lose Euron's dudes, but I mean, that's a
I
fraction.
predict actually that's how it's all going to go bad at the end for Cersei, is that she's going to get so fed up with Euron, she's going to try to have him killed, and then he's going to basically set off catastrophe, and it's going to resort to, like, that's I think how that's all going to go down at the end for her.
Yeah.
So, are we up to Bronn yet?
Yeah, that's what we've got.
Poor
left.
Bronn. He shot a dragon. He comes home a hero. And the girls he's hired can't even talk to him or about him. But we did get our sex position, and we did find out what happened to Ed Sheeran.
Yeah.
And Qyburn decides, we want the crossbow that killed Tywin to be the crossbow that kills Tyrion.
I have to say,
It's fucking family.
I definitely have stuff to say about the meat of that scene, but I think it also contained one of my favorite Qyburn moments ever, where he's dismissing the girls and just casually says, "Oh, that poor girl, the pox."
Oh my God!
Here.
Oh
And
God!
then Bronn is just suddenly like, "Wait, which one?"
Which one? I just slept with one of them. Which one? I loved that so much. You're right, Christiana. I almost forgot about it. That was everything to me.
That was so good. But the real meat of the scene, the idea of like, we're going to hire Bronn to kill Tyrion and Jaime. Like, on the one,
do you guys think it's going to happen?
Well, I don't think it's going to happen, but I don't know that it won't happen because Bronn refuses, because he's always been the guy who will go where the actual money is, and it's like he's always been the sort of guy that he'll say, hey, I liked you, but this is business, that sort of thing. That's always been the character. Now, that said, I feel like this plot line is missing a piece. There's a shoe that hasn't dropped with Bronn. I feel like there's got to be something more to him that we have not seen. One theory that seems really off the wall, but I kind of love the idea of it, is that Bronn, actually Highborn, is actually a Rain.
Oh.
The family that was destroyed by the Lannisters?
The Rains of Castamere.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now, I don't know that there's any actual evidence of that. It was just like, wouldn't it be cool if sort of idea.
Wow.
That would be fun.
And if the castle he ends up with is Casterly fucking Rock.
Yeah, right? Wouldn't
that would be fantastic.
I feel like that is such an awesome plot line that could happen.
Yeah.
You know I love my crackpot theories, so
Yeah.
I'm all in.
Have there been any hints? Because they love to drop hints. Well, that's too much. That's a whole other thing.
There are hints that he's perhaps highborn,
Yeah.
right? The way he talks. He's, the show has previously made a point of saying highborn people say my lord instead of my lord, and he definitely my lord.
Yeah.
And
That's
also
true.
this idea that he's talked so much about wanting to have a castle, right? Also, just the idea that it's not clear that this doesn't necessarily directly connect to that, but just the implication when he's previously said that he's been north of the wall before. He's said that he has.
Right.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that doesn't necessarily connect to him being highborn, except it's a mystery. Like, well, really? Why?
It tells us that there's more to him
Yes.
than we know.
So
Kind of
I
like
don't
Shepherd
know.
book. Sorry.
Yes.
So I don't know if it's because he's a Rain, but I definitely think there's more to him, and that will be revealed as part of this plot line.
That'd be cool. I'd be in for that.
I think it might also be interesting because it's like when it aired, I said something to Chooch about, oh, there's your alignment check for you. He's still the same kind of, at least he seems like he will continue to follow the money, at least up until the point that it gets him in front of Tyrion and Jaime to make the decision. And I think that's interesting because we've seen so many characters evolve into something else. We've seen Cersei get darker and darker, and we've seen so many other characters get brighter and brighter, and we're expecting we're expecting Dany to be like a really great ruler because we've been thinking about it for all these years, and now we're seeing maybe she wouldn't be such a great ruler in Westeros, where they aren't slaves to be freed, they're free citizens with their own thoughts. But also, I'm sorry, I just lost my thought. But with Bronn again, it's just like maybe he's one that won't evolve. Maybe he will always just chase the money. Maybe it's because he's a Rain, but maybe he just will not change that, and he's not going to evolve into taking a higher road.
Well, and one thing I do want to point out about Bronn, because in my head I'm like, well, of course he's gonna just side with Jaime and Tyrion. Of course, I don't know why I feel like that
because we want him to.
Because I want him to. But the other thing is, he can't just side with Tyrion and Jaime because he's going to have to deal with the fact that he fired and landed a shot on one of Dany's dragons. I don't think she's going to she's going to forgive so easily.
Well, I don't think she has any way to know
who-
it's him. I mean, he would know, but I don't think anyone else would reasonably know that it was him that did it.
Maybe.
But I actually think there's something to be said in the whole idea of this show subverting tropes, or at least trying to.
Yeah.
In some ways, I think it's really kind of given up on that. I think it's really more fulfilling them than subverting them these days. But that said, I think there's something interesting to be said from having him really turn out to be. I always said I was the character who would go where I was paid to go, and do what
just
I was
like Peter always said, don't trust me.
Yeah. And so I think there is something to be said for, it's like what he said to Tyrion, before the trial, of saying, look, you told me anytime someone offered me money to betray you that I should give you a chance to match it. But if you can't match it, what do you want me to do?
And that's what I feel like. I feel like he's going to give Tyrion the chance to match it, but we'll see. We'll see. Is there anything else we need to cover? I think we've got
Did
it.
you have any
my
unexpressed
notes?
I feel like I interrupted Chooch the whole episode.
Yeah, it's all my notes.
What does everyone want to rate this episode?
Oh,
Hmm.
do I have to stay under the
You
denominator?
can put whatever you want.
Have we ever limited you?
No, and I love you for it.
I believe we've got a couple 110% or 150%.
I feel like I'm going to give it 8 out of 10 connected dots. And it's only as low as it is just because it's still, even after so much of last season felt like place setting, let's get all the pieces in the right positions. it actually still kind of felt like that's what this episode was doing. Now, I loved so much of it, but it really was all conversations and very little plot.
Okay.
Mhm.
Chooch?
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm going to give it 10 out of 10 Night King art installations.
I love it.
And I
And
think
Viv?
my 10 is definitely influenced by the fact that it's the first episode we've had in a year and a half.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's really funny is last season you also gave it the first episode a 10 out of 10.
Eh.
Viv?
I'm gonna give it 101 of 100 Samuel Tarly tears.
Aww. And I'm going to give it a 9.5 creepy brand staring at creepy people.
Deserving people. They deserve
Yes,
those
and that
tears.
gives us a 9.4 for this episode.
I'm the one that brought it so low, I suppose.
Hey.
No,
That's
no, it's
honesty.
good.
I
It
know.
is.
And it's, I mean, you know, I'm trying to say an 8 out of 10 is not a bad.
No,
No,
that's
it's
a
not.
great.
Yeah.
That's a great score. And I know that mine is inflated just because of all the reunions.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
am here for it, and I'm
Yeah,
so happy.
Exactly.
And honestly, it's not that far off because I think, Christiana, last year you gave the first episode a 9, and I think I gave it a 9 as well. And then, so we only kind of like I went up a little, you went down a little, so it's all good.
Well, yeah, so I think that it's also possible that once we get the payoff of some of
Yeah.
the setup here, will, you know, change maybe how I feel about some of it. And I loved some of those connections, but I almost feel like there's too many. Like they're
Yeah.
so rapid fire that you don't really get to sit with any of them that long.
Yeah.
And that's what amazes me. You guys are like, well, I thought it was this person until they showed their face. And I'm like, I am so sitting there like blank. I am just like watching things unfold. I can't really see one breath ahead of what they're about to say. And it's just like, that's why I went slightly over on mine and just by a hair, because it takes a lot for a show to be able to do that for me. To get out of my own head and to really just be like on the edge of my seat. So
Mike McCauley says he gives it 10 out of 10 bad eunuch jokes. Which, by the way, I absolutely love the comment about the eunuch jokes versus
Yeah.
dwarf jokes, because that does show up in the books, but it happens in Essos.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, that made me super duper happy. Does anyone know the name of next week's episode?
No, and I thought it was curious that in the past that HBO's released them pretty close to the front, and I couldn't find it anywhere. Even on the cable companies like tomorrow's schedule, it just says episode 2. Or
Yeah,
it
I thought that
says
was just
episode
my
2, air date
crave.
4/21. No,
I thought that was just my
Wait,
crave. Okay.
so
there's no title.
I don't. This might not actually be a title. It's just a Forbes article that says Game of Thrones season 8, episode 2 preview: The Night King cometh. But that might just be a cheeky headline.
Right.
Yeah.
Like what's
Yeah.
going to happen.
So all I saw was it's titled "To Be Announced."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Interesting.
overall, in the
IMDb just
entire
called it
season,
number 8.2.
Mhm.
in the entire season overall, it's going to be episode 69.
Oh, gosh.
Nice.
Oh boy.
There is in this article, though, there is a blurb for it, like that sort of TV guide blurb, which is the battle at Winterfell is approaching. Jaime is confronted with the consequences of the past. A tense interaction between Sansa and Daenerys follows.
Huh.
Bum bum bum.
Mm.
All right. So
Mhm.
that's exciting. So we all have something to watch while we're chowing down on our Easter eggs and chocolates and matzo balls and so forth,
Peeps.
or whatever you have. Cool.
All right, yeah, that clears it out. So I want to thank everybody and really thank Mike and everybody who's joining in the chat. It's always
Dante,
a lot
yep.
of fun. And we will be recording next week. And as mentioned, Nutty is putting together our little reactions for us. So once we watch the new episode, look for that earlier in the
Those
week.
should be out, say, Tuesday. I think they came out Wednesday this week. Check the MP3 feed first.
Yes. And this will hit the podcast feed tomorrow, what we recorded. And so I'm going to I have our outro music queued up, but I wanted to give a shout out to my band, The Art of Falling. After the outro, I'm going to go ahead and play a song that we wrote that is Game of Thrones inspired. Not really just inspired. It's pretty literally fucking a Game of Thrones song.
Yeah.
It's called Winter is Here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But so that's gonna play us out at the very end. Thank you so much, everybody, again, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Supposed to be playing. Why isn't it playing? Oh, did I mute the channel? That was so smooth. So smooth. All right, here we go.
If you have feedback for the Beyond the Wall podcast, you can email us at btw@specficmedia.com. You can also leave us a comment on the website. Go to specficmedia.com where you'll find a shiny BTW button. That'll take you right to our page. This podcast is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 3.0 Unported license. Feel free to share and remix. Just give us credit and don't charge money for it.
Led the free men into battle. Winter's here, the stars believe. Oh, the prophecy has spoken. Lord Commander, you will lead. Oh, the cold is getting hungry. It will rise and it will feed. Many died, the non-believers, blind by power and by greed. How do you fight this darkness, not knowing who you are? What we've seen now stands before us, shaking deep into your core. We must all stand together, leave your battles, this is war. How do you fight this darkness, not knowing who you are? Fire, blood, ice. Fire, blood, ice. Fire, blood, ice, fire, blood. People this day, rain by rain. We will find ways, they need to go away. Let them go away, nowhere to run away. We will live today, rain by rain. We will find ways, they need to go away. Let them go away, nowhere to run away. Our own demise, it lies in lies. Here we stand, no one behind us. Strength we hold to fight for life. Those we've known rise up before us. Deep within you, bring the fight. How do you fight this darkness, not knowing who you are? Set your sights to your history. we can see through brothers' eyes. Who will live to see the future? Those who died, they will arise. How do you fight this darkness? Not knowing who you are. Fire, blood, ice. Fire, blood, ice. Fire, blood, ice. Fire, blood. You live today, bring thy way. We will find ways. They need to go away. They can go away. Nowhere to run away. We will live today, bring thy way. We will find ways. They need to go away. They can go away. Nowhere to run away. Our own demise. Did I tonight? Dragon fire, who's to tell what will save you from this hell? Dragon fire, who's to tell what will save you from this hell? Dragon fire, who's to tell what will save you from this hell? Dragon fire, who's to tell what will save you from this hell?
That was The Art of Falling with their hit single winner is no. Good night.